Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, your guests, dear Mr. Dornfried, I think you know more about me than myself. Thank you for this introduction. Sometimes if the people introduce my biography, I'm really getting stressed about it. I said, how can one person do so much stuff? I cannot believe it, but it's not like that. I mean, I always answer to this question. My children still don't say aunt to me. They say mama, and this is the best thing of all. I would like to welcome you all really warmly in Berlin. I told you that I'm not agree with the weather, and sometimes I'm really missing the light. And this means something because originally I'm coming from Turkey, right? But I grew up in Bavaria, it's the southern part, and sometimes if you're talking about migration, the people are asking me to the differences between Turkey and Germany, and I said this is nothing compared to the differences from southern part of Germany and Berlin. It starts with bread, how to bake a bread, to the way of speaking and to the way of cultural behavior and more, but this is not the thing we should talk about it today, maybe later on, but today I'm delighted really to be here with you and have the opportunities to speak to you about the demographic developments in Germany. Well, maybe I would say just one more word to myself. Many people might expect it from me, as I become member of the German Parliament, that I would naturally want to devote myself on migration policy. This would be the natural thing. I'm member of the German Parliament since 1998. By the age of 27, it was really a challenge to become a young migrant woman in the German Parliament. Sometimes I'm asking myself if this was more challenge for me or for the majority in this parliament. More men's, 1/3 of the German Parliament are women. The number of the migrants are less than 10%. It's the highest number in this period ever. And I think it's something about 7%. It's less than the number of the migrants in Germany. But anyway, I decided on the other way. I told for myself, if you want to change the things, if you want to reach a change of thinking, a new way of thinking, you cannot do migration policy because this is the expectation of the majority. I wanted to focus on children rights, family affairs, and this was firstly because I wanted to spare my children and all the other children growing up in Germany a part of the negative experiences I made myself with my migration background. And secondly, because there is so much scope to shape and achieve things in this area, to give the children and the new generation a chance. This was the challenge why I'm in the politics, and this is why I'm also an active member of the UNICEF board in Germany, and I really enjoy my work up there. In Germany, there is a lot of things and much influx. Society is constantly changing. This is not new. This is also in other countries, but in Germany, demographic changes in particular confront us with major challenges. While the world's population as whole is growing rapidly, the reverse is happening in Germany. Society is shrinking. Our numbers are declining, and in future we will have fewer and fewer children in our midst. People are growing older, and the average age is steadily rising. This is a thing we all want, but this has got also the other part. What is really new about this demographic trend is the fact that, not the fact that the people are getting older, but we will have a completely new stratification of generation. Today, we are accustomed to few old people and many young people, and this is the normal way you know from any other country. This social structure is setting in Germany to change. In future, we will have a few younger people, and we will find a new forms of social coexistence with larger numbers of older people. This requires us to rethink our ideas of old and young. Society will become more colorful, the country more diverse. Already every fifth person in Germany has a migrant background. Cultural and religious diversity will characterize the life in our aging society from generation to the next generation. As we ask ourselves, what can be done to counter the aging and the shrinking of society? Many people call for more immigration or a proactive population policy. But this supposed solution falls short of the mark. I will give you an example. For example, population policy. If you want to have the same proportion from young people to elder people in the German society, every young woman between 20 and 40 have to become immediately pregnant, getting at least 3.8 children in this year. This will not happen, I can promise you. Or simply, like our social researchers always say, a generation which is not born will not get children. This means measures in the area of population policy alone can neither reverse nor halt the development to come. In the final analysis, we cannot hold back the demographic change, but we can take active steps to shape this demographic change. As with any change, demographic development also brings opportunities, and we are obliged to see these opportunities. We must rethink our understanding and our expectation with respect to what government institution and civil society should be going. People will be working differently. They will live together differently. They will move around in a different way. In principle, we need a whole of government strategy which incorporates demographic aspects in all areas of policy and combines adaptation strategies intelligently together. In this process, the paramount concern must always be to keep in mind the needs and the interests of the next generations. Ensuring we do not live beyond our means today is one of the key factors which will determine the future opportunities of coming generations. We must not live today at the expense of our children tomorrow in the future. In the various areas of policy, we should already be thinking today about what will be happening tomorrow, which are the challenges, and take an open approach to the questions regarding the future. We must use the coming years to adjust these changes, and we must use the coming years because if we stop taking these challenges for serious today, the challenges will become bigger and even unsolvable. I will give you an example for this. One of the more urgent problems of demographic change is the shortage of skilled labor, which is already having an impact of some branches of industry and in some regions. The knock-on effect of the shrinking population is that the employment rate is also declining. We need the labor policy. We need all the people on work for our social system, for example. They are the ones who are paying the taxes. They are the ones who are paying the social security systems in retirement, for example. Workforces are aging and there is a shortage of skilled workers in Germany, and we know this. And to counteract this trend, we from the Green Parliamentary Group in German Bundestag, we are proposing a raft of measures in the areas of labor market, immigration, education, and equality. We can no longer continue to allow children to fall through the education system. And this will apply even more over the coming decades. No talent must be allowed to fall by the wayside. Ensuring the best educational opportunities for all is imperative in the interest of justice and of economic innovation and sustainability in this country. Despite having the right qualification, many women in the society are not integrated in the job market. In many cases, structural obstacles, discrimination, and the problem of balancing family and jobs and family and career is difficult for women to access in the job access. And this is not only a thing I'm saying, this is also what OECD always tells us, or the European Union. It is important to dismantle these obstacles and thereby enable more women to participate in the workforce as a whole. There is also an urgent need to improve the integration of migrants in the labor market. Germany is a country of immigration. It has been and it will be. We need people who want to live and work here. And if you want to encourage people to come to live and work in Germany, we need firstly dismantle bureaucratic obstacles. Secondly, we need simplified access regulation and attractive conditions in terms of immigration and integration policy, providing prospects for partners and educational opportunities for their children. Immigrants are future citizens, and that is how we should treat them. Not as guests, not as people who come to go home, as people who come here and stay here and as a part of the society. We must emphasize the need for integration from the very start, beginning from the preschool level in schools and in training, on jobs and also in daily life. It must be made easier for people to come to Germany and to access the jobs market, education and training. This also applies to migrants who are already living here. We should not forget them because they have sometimes the same problems like the first immigrants. In an aging population, we will have to work all together longer and longer. This means that we must alter our thinking with regard of older employees. The labor and skills of older people are crucial to our economic performance, and even a modern corporate culture which embraces diversity will not survive without a good mix of generations. This means on the one hand that we need to exploit the potential of older people. On the other hand, we must enable people to stay fit for work as long as possible. There must be age-appropriate working conditions so that employees can stay healthy and until they retire. And we cannot dare definitely early in the retirement policy about which we are talking now. Again, in Germany, you know, the retirement age in Germany is 67 by now, and we are now talking again about 63, but this is really counterproductive to the politics we need in this country. We must promote lifetime learning by a combination of good advice, time for ongoing education, and intelligent funding systems for elder people on the labor market. The effects of a shrinking and aging population are already apparent, particularly in the rural areas. A modern policy to maintain the viability of rural areas must focus on broadening employment possibilities in the countryside and putting in place integrated development concepts. Alongside agriculture, for example, in the landscape, this means tourism. Why not? The production and processing of renewable raw materials, the production of renewable energies from biomass, sun and wind, and also the further processing of agricultural products. It also includes a large number of small and medium-sized enterprises, especially in the rural areas. Service and products offered in and for the region, as well as regional supply chains, help sustain the well-functioning community and social cohesion. Regional supply chains and business cycles need to be expanded and promoted in order to bring regional products and goods to market Think global, act local. This is the way how we think about green politics. The internet, too, is crucial to the development of rural areas. E-government and easily accessible, barrier-free internet and media services will in future play a key role in these areas. They can compensate in part for the lack of mobility of the people and those with disabilities and help to maintain the quality of life, a good life we are talking about. Even if in the face of declining population, traditional forms of welfare have to be restricted. We cannot change this, but we can connect the rural communities to modern communication technologies, and so high-speed broadband must be a really important priority. We Greens regard these changes as an opportunity to put the economy on more ecological, sustainable footing. What does this mean? Maintaining the status quo is not enough. It can't be enough. Rather, we must redefine prosperity and progress. For us, one thing is clear. Economic growth is not the measure of all things. The fixation of policy on gross domestic product has led us astray. GDP says nothing about the important things that takes a country to success. Ultimately, if growth is both at the expense of the destruction of the environment and injustice, it actually makes us poorer. When it comes to decoupling economic growth and environmental consumption, the challenges lies in drastically reducing the world's current consumption of resources. We are really campaigning for a far-reaching efficiency improvements for a political, social, and cultural climate which can be made reality, which is not just a vision. We need a new yardstick to measure prosperity and quality of life, this good life, a new indicator which factors in the social and ecological dimension of prosperity. We are therefore calling, for example, on companies from a certain size up to be obliged, along with their financial reports, to submit sustainability reports, including social and ecological indicators. In this way, we can give economic development a green direction. Our aim is to create an economy which uses resources sparingly, which develops products and services using modern technologies and minimum use of raw materials and energy. This too is a part and a parcel of intergenerational fairness, because it is not right for us to create our own prosperity at the expense of future generations. Sustainability is not just a word. It's a responsibility and it's a challenge. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very, very much for a very thought-provoking presentation. We would now welcome your questions or your comments. And as always, if you can briefly introduce yourself when posing the question so that Ms. Deligöz knows where you're coming from. Who would like to go first? Okay, Your Excellency.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Madam. I would like to have more details regarding the age of retreat in Germany, because I know that is 67 now, but listen that 63 or are you trying to give it back to 63 or to keep on 67? Thank you.
Well, you cannot, it's not a simple question. It would be easier to say there is an age, but there is no age. Today you can say the average age for the retirement in Germany is 60. 60. Because you've got a lot of people going early in retirement who cannot work anymore, who's got, I don't know, different cases, different reasons. And, but we know we cannot keep along with this age. And the retirements now, you know, we've got, the thing is, the working class now, the labor market now is responsible for the retirements of the elder generations today. We are paying their money. This is a kind of intergeneration contract. And if we want to keep that the money is enough, we are paying now for the retirements now in 10 years. We have more people, whether to pay more or to have less people in retirement. And therefore, we are increasing the age year by year. My parents will go into retirement in the age of 65. I myself, born 71, I will maybe go in with 67. But this will not be enough. We know this because today we've got a part, I think the number is something like 19 people are paying for one person in retirement. In the year 2050, we are changing this. One person have to pay for one person in retirement, so you have got to earn this money, and nobody is able to do that. And we are now discussing, but only the Social Democrats and the Christian Democrats today are discussing for special groups who worked 45 years. They started by the age of 15 to work and are now 60, that they can go early in the retirement, but it's really popular. Everybody wants to go in retirement. It's not popular to work in the age of 62 or 63. I know this, but on the other side, this will cost us millions of euros we don't have, and we don't have now, and we will not have in the future. This will bring us, for a short time, maybe a solution for a few people. On the long term, we cannot afford it, though we are a really rich country, I have to say.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Not easy, but
Maybe it's also, a part of is also that we've got a high retirement number. An average retirement cost in Germany is something about 1,500 euros. It's a high social, it's not a high social standard, but it's a social standard.
Good afternoon. My name is Julia. I'm from Washington, D.C. I work at a foreign policy think tank there. I really enjoyed your talk. Thank you so much for being here. I wanted to return to something you spoke about toward the beginning, which was how your party is planning for the shifting population in Germany. The idea that the population is aging and there will be less young people. And as a young person, I don't know, it just sounds scary. And what are the plans that you make? Like what changes do you foresee in how society will operate?
Well, we cannot talk in Germany about a population policy. France, for example, has got a kind of a population policy. I will give you an example. They've got this children welfare, and you can get the children welfare if you've got 3 children, not before. In Germany, you get it per each child. It's a kind of Kindergeld, children's money, how we call it. But it's maybe also because of the German history we cannot talk about a population policy. But you can do a lot of things to restart. For example, women. We in Europe or in OECD statistics, we have got less women on the work, especially on the full-time work. We've got something about 67 to 70% of the women working, but 80% of them half-time. And it's a kind of, working is not just working, it's a kind of integration in the community. It's also social security you get with this. And we know today, if you look in the statistics, who is poor in Germany, we know they're families and they're women. And the women, they will stay poor if they retire because they don't have the social welfare, they have got just the social welfare, but not the social security because they didn't work. And so we have to change the systems two in the same time. First, we need more social security, and therefore we need more people on the work, in the labor market. And in the second part, we have to activate more groups. The one is the women. The second one is what about the migrants we've got in Germany, or the less educated people. We cannot afford any less educated people anymore in Germany. And we also need the elder people on the job. So with these two measures, more migration, more women, on the work with a system which allows that they can work. This is the other part of this. And more people working longer. The three of them is a full-size answer. It's a maybe a try. But you don't have to get scared. We are really nice people up here in Germany.
Sorry, I was told to stand up. My name is Joanna. I live and work in Paris. I heard the three main pillars of your suggestion about the way forward to deal with aging population, and it kind of brought to my mind a recent study which was presented at the business school, which basically made the argument that in the future we will be working, at least in most services sectors, outside offices. We will have individual working spaces. We will not need to go to an office. We will probably go maximum for a few hours every week to have a meeting. And because we also have a population which is very well educated, the hierarchical structures in businesses are going to change. Because if you have a lot of people with high-profile education, very competent, you cannot figure out the classical hierarchical structures that exist in administrations, in businesses, and elsewhere. So, by definition, you need to rearrange the way of doing business, the way of organizing your administration. So, I would actually propose, if I may, that in these three kind of pillar structure that you presented, more immigration, more women, and possibly people who work longer in their lives, to take into account this factor that possibly we can also change the way we have been doing administration, the way we have been structuring businesses, and see whether all these elements put together could actually bring a good outcome for all those involved, because there are some reasons why the current situation is the way it is, and we cannot completely change human nature.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. Thank you, definitely. But, and I would like to say, but there are some things we have to change in Germany, and we are just in the beginning. I wouldn't say we don't do it at all, but we are in the beginning. The first thing is you have to go away from the presence culture in the companies. And we've got a lot of companies, for example, Siemens, Telefunken, Allianz is just changing in the beginning, but the big companies, they have got always this presence culture. The one who's the latest in the office is the best worker, way of thinking. And this is completely no way for people with small children, because also the full-time school is closing at a time. And the same, it's in the production. We don't have as much production as in the 70s or 80s in Germany. Most of the production is in the other countries. But we have production systems. We have got all-around production systems. For example, everything which is with energy or production of cars, we've got 24 hours production systems, and you need the workers on the job in these times, and there is no change, because maybe there would be a change if there would be a change in the minds, but it is not. We've got an old way of thinking in our companies. We're starting with all this in the service area, for example, or if you started in the offices. At my office, for example, everybody can work at home or in office or in any of the rooms. I've got only 3, but anyway. When I started this and asked for our IT company, I wanted all my employees to work at home. They need a stick to come into their software and all the plans. They looked at me and said, but you cannot control them. And I told them, I don't need to control them, because I know if they do their work or not. If they are not doing this, I will ask for it. It's for me, it's simple, but this new way of thinking, it's not German. You need a while. But it's good if you started in France because we're always looking to the other countries, which is the best way, the best examples. And for example, in the family politics, France, as well as all the northern parts, Sweden, Finland, all the countries, are better than Germany. Why? Because they invested a lot of money in infrastructure. And we had really a high discussion about if children, though kindergarten is a German word, if children should go to early childkeeping or not, if it's good for them or bad, and what will happen to them if there is another person looking after them. So just start, go ahead.
Well, Ms. Deligöz, thank you very, very much for the very interesting presentation, which is a topic which we will all be dealing with, whether we are young or old, before we know it. And I think it's very important to also hear the policies of the Green Party. As many of you may not know, Germany is the first country in the world to have the Green Party in Parliament. So I think that's one thing that Germany can be proud of. And we hope that also your perspectives will continue to have a strong voice in the future. So
Thank
if you could please help me in expressing our sincere gratitude to Ms. Deligöz. Thank you.